obviously a female because its main female reproductive organ had swelled up to a stomach-churning degree. Meanwhile, the second specimen had such huge physical stature that even though it was thin as a reed, it still looked rather impressive. The two beady eyes on top of its pseudo-stapler-like head reminded Lin Sanji of the Komodo dragon she once saw at the zoo. After a long period of observation, comparison, and analysis, we have retained two types of Duluwashans, which have proved to be useful to us over the decades. The Cicerone said she yawned, staring daggers at the few freeloaders behind. In the next display case, Lin Sanjiu saw a long-haired desiccated corpse. Its arms were thin and sharp as blades and they were connected to its body via a folded piece of skin. Its mouth was slightly ajar, and a huge slit looked as if it separated the head into two. Kachusei-kana prattled the Cicerone as she wrapped the display case. Docile, weak in combat, herbivores, as it is relatively versatile. Many people would love to raise one to help them with their daily chores. There was a living specimen about 3 miles away from this dry corpse. Perhaps Nagashi had ever bought a ticket to come in and meet its unfortunate predecessor with its mask on. What was Nagashi thinking when it saw the dry corpse when Lin Sanji had thought about that? A complicated feeling rose from her heart. Didn't you say that this kind of Duluwashang is a herbivore? That means they can only eat greens and fruits, doesn't it? A freeloader asked before continuing. What a bunch of bloodsuckers. Not even I can afford to eat those things every day. No, the Cicerone looked at Lin Sanji with a replied. They are herbivores because instead of consuming flesh, they feed on human screams, fear, adrenaline level, and so on. Where can their owner find those emotions? Lin Sanji asked. Her brows creased tightly in the center of her forehead. There's a corporation that collects those in the doomsday. Oh, speaking about that, there's a haunted house under the corporation in Black's Market, where the gaseous compounds and screams released by the visitors are preserved and sold to the owner of the Kachusei-kana, advised the Cicerone that had a round face. You can go and have a try. It's quite a delightful experience. And by the way, the ticket isn't that expensive if you are concerned about the price. Why would you expect Duluwashans? What can they do? Lin Sanji continued to ask. Everybody is post-human. The Cicerone sighed. If it weren't for the money, nobody would be willing to stay at a place for such a long time and work like a dimwit, especially at those jobs that require manual labor. The best example would be the cleaning of Black's Market. The process of cleaning the streets, collecting the rubbish, sending it off to the garbage collection station to be incinerated. That will take at least 5 adults all night. However, the case is different for Duluwashans. We only need to place a Duluwashang on one street, and they can get the job done in a week. They don't need to rest and they will never fall sick. After all, it's hard for them to die. Lin Sanji fell silent. The next Duluwashang was a male. Its body looked no different from a human save for one feature. The yellow gaseous compounds that hid underneath its skin though the gas had dissipated a long time ago after the Duluwashang died. I can see that you are using red crystals, but have you ever thought about who's the one that goes into the volcano, excavates the ore that is located about 100 meters deep, and then polish them into different sizes? The Cicerone spurted out quickly as if she had ingrained everything about the Duluwashangs deeply inside her brain. She seemed edgy as she kept looking at her watch. Here is your answer. They are the ones who did the job. Every 14 months, we send a batch out. Duluwashang miners for the cost of 1 in 4,000 of the results of their work. Are you guys not afraid of the Duluwashangs fighting back? I will now show you how we keep those Duluwashangs in check. The Cicerone brought Lin Sanjiu, along with a batch of visitors, into an antechamber. There, Lin Sanjiu saw a dozen of detention, manipulation, and containment tools. From shock collar, remote control chips, to Pavlov-style neurosm. Every single one of the exhibits inside the display case was able to make even the most liberal person loses his will to fight back. Some of them are developed by the Haven University. The Cicerone continued to speak indifferently. In addition to these tools, we have a variety of training techniques. For those Duluwashangs, we are boss to them and we are the only ones who can keep them alive. Listen and follow our command and orders. That's the best way for them to survive. We will ensure every Duluwashang understands this concept before releasing them out to work. When the tour was coming to an end, the Cicerone brought them to the next exhibition hall. Standing by the entrance, the girl continued to blurt out the script in her mind. However, our world is now facing an increasingly pressing problem. In the past 70 years, a lot of Duluwashangs have died for various reasons, causing their species to deplete at an alarming rate, and their population now is only 15% of the population that year. Our demand has risen by half, but there's no way for us to increase their population since the doomsday is already over. So, how are we going to solve the manpower problem in the future? There is no clear-cut answer to this question yet. After she came out of the museum, Lin Sanjiu then strode towards the eatery. As the night continued to fall, the people in Black's Market began thinning. A light bulb that emitted an orange glow was hanging right on top of the iron griddle. Nagashi had not closed the shop yet, veiling its grotesque face behind a mask. It sat as still as a rock behind the stall. It did not realize Lin Sanjiu at first as it continued to stare blankly into the night sky. When Lin Sanjiu's shadow loomed over the iron griddle, only then did the Kachusei-kana suddenly jump up. It did not speak and just looked straight into Lin Sanjiu's eyes. Lin Sanjiu lowered her head to look at the iron griddle, which was clean and emanated a shiny sheen. Suddenly, a thought came into her mind. Nakadashi has been moonlighting as a guide around here. It even went so far as to giving its boss's funds away for free to secure a job. Can this be considered as curbing a graft? Why do you need to save so much egg money? Lin Sanjiu asked dryly after a short while. There's somebody I want to see. Nakadashi replied honestly. Who? Takeshi Seigana gave her a glance. Does it have anything to do with the matter we are discussing right now? One word. Are you gonna hire me, or not? Both of them stared at each other in dismay. Then, Lin Sanjiu spoke. The concept of it doesn't exist to you Duluas Hans, does it? I can show you clearly if you want, but you don't seem like one who needs somebody's almsgiving. Countered Nakadashi smartly. Lin Sanjiu was stumped by her reply. She suddenly let out a peal of laughter as she pointed at the tray next to the iron griddle. Give me the buns. I want to have a taste. Nakadashi stretched its hand out from its backy sleeve which contained its wet. It took the tray and handed it to Lin Sanjiu. The light bulb continued to glow weakly. The buns were getting a little cold just like the night of Black's Market. Chapter 720. Lin Sanjiu's Shopping Day. 2. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. After the roller shutter slammed to the ground with a loud smash, Nakadashi crouched down and locked it. Aside from telling the patron of the shop that they were closed for the day, it could do little to stop the burglar from entering. Lin Sanjiu was certain that she could lay waste to the roller shutter with a single punch. The money is with me, and there are only several pieces of equipment that I can't take away inside the shop. So don't worry, Nakadashi said after it noticed Lin Sanjiu's gaze. It's very safe here in the day, but it seems that no matter where you are, you post-humans always think there's something lurking around when night arrives. The night was getting dark and most of the shops were closed. As they walked along the street, Lin Sanjiu saw a shop owner fold his wooden hut into a stack and carry it away. The flashing lights from the shops that remained open throughout the night cast flitting shadows. Against the walkway, a distinct street light, which rose from nowhere, was hanging high in the sky. The orange block cast its warm light on the pedestrians on the street. Their shadows were long behind them. It stretched to the end of the horizon without touching anything midway. Living up to its reputation, Takeshi Seigana was indeed a guide who performed its duty well. As they strolled down the street, it explained, this street might not look like it, but it will soon turn into a bustling area. Well, it is different from the kind of busyness you saw in the day. Why's that? The only thing you can't find in here is lacking itself. Nakadashi shrugged as it continued. Although Black's Market has everything you need, there is a quantum of things that aren't suitable to be placed under the eyes of the public but in a corner shop in the middle of the night. And I am looking for houses. Lin Sanjiu could not help interrupting. Yeah, you already said that before. Nakadashi replied apathetically. It's better to buy houses secretly in the wee hours of the night. Wasn't that the reason you came to me at closing time? What kind of logic is that? It was 1:15 in the middle of the night. Lin Sanjiu was trailing a Duluas home, her head filled with questions. They soon crossed half of Black's Market and stepped onto a street filled with a kaleidoscope of lights. There were fewer street lights here. The fusion of the psychedelic lights from the neon lamp and the vivian of lights fashioned in a geometrical latticework chased the darkness away, lighting up the dust particles in the air as they leaped through the entire night sky, filling the upper region to the ceiling with fervor. Whilst the other streets had gone into slumber, this street had just awoken. Several post-humans climbed onto a building as they yawned. They pinched the corner of the building and flipped the layer of skin open. The skin was about several meters thick with a furry texture that shrouded the entire building like a sack. Lin Sanjiu would have never known it if Nakadashi had not told her that it was a building because from the flitting second that those post-humans flipped the skin off, Lin Sanjiu saw that the main body of the building was red in color, and there were short pulsations on the odd occasion as if it were breathing. It has to put the skin on before the sun rises and it goes to sleep. Takeshi Seigana explained when it saw that Lin Sanjiu had stopped to look at the building. It will then take the skin down at night. This building is popular amongst the younger generation. You will be able to see its reverie on your way back. The flow of people thickened as they went further down the street, and groups of women and men dressed in different attire began to show up. Some of them were leaning against the wall while the others crouched by the roadside. A gang of youngsters made of Virginia fence, walking past Lin Sanjiu's side. They passed a roll of paper around among themselves, and an occasional peal of laughter would erupt amidst the clanking of bottles. It was a rare sight to see a woman of Lin Sanjiu's height strolling around. Everybody was staring at her, and even though Nakadashi was walking by her side, none of them spared it a glance. It was as if the mask it wore had made it invisible, and those youngsters' eyes slipped past it as though it was air. You mentioned that this building is popular amongst youngsters. Lin Sanjiu asked as she observed the back of Takeshi Seigana. It had a head shoulder-length deep brown hair, and Lin Sanjiu found that it looked just like a woman from this angle. Yes, what's wrong? I've been wondering. Lin Sanjiu asked hesitantly. You should be very young to aren't you? Takeshi Seigana did not answer the question promptly. He continued to walk forward, just as Lin Sanjiu thought it was going to remain silent for the rest of the journey. Its muffled voice slid into her ears. Yeah, how old are you? Nakagashi suddenly stopped walking. It pointed to a door that looked like a tavern. Do you see those tiny shut red doors? That's one of the more famous florists on this street. When you visit a florist, you must pick one with a reliable reputation. Not only are their flowers domesticated, but they also regularly provide flowers liquid glands and fans. So the flowers are rather safe compared to others. The moment it finished speaking, the doors were pushed open and a man walked in, emerging from the golden glow that spilled out from the ajar door. His face was ruddy, his steps were unsteady, and his eyes were glazed over. Nevertheless, there was a satisfactory expression sitting comfortably on his face. He lifted his feet, stumbling over a puddle, and waded into the night. Lin Sanjin glanced at Nakagashi. Although she knew it was trying to sidetrack her, she went along and asked, "What's in that place?" "I don't see the man holding any flowers in his hands." "Flowers are a service tool," said Nakagashi as she led Lin Sanjin down the long alley. "As for its application, I've heard of it before, but I'm not so sure. This is mainly because I've never been to a florist before, and secondly, Black's Market has created tons of new desires that have never existed for humans before and then developed several industrial chains to satisfy these desires. I have no idea which desires the man has fulfilled in the florist, but if you really want to know, you can go in and try it out." Lin Sanjin thought for a moment and decided to flip a coin. After all, when one had too much money, she could do whatever she wanted. When the clock struck 2 in the morning, Lin Sanjin realized that Nakagashi was bringing her into the men's washroom. "Hold on," said Lin Sanjin promptly. She began to wonder if she was getting a little too comfortable with the Duluashan. "I want to buy houses. Why did you bring me here? I know, you've said that numerous times already." The Kachasegana glanced at her from behind its mask and moved to a cubicle. Then, she knocked it twice. "Who's up there?" A young man's voice, which was the embodiment of carefree and casual, wafted from the cubicle. "I'm SHT." The Kachasegana was stunned. It angled the mask on its face. Then, after taking a deep breath, it wrapped the door rapidly, releasing a long chain of rapid taps into the air. It was only now that Lin Sanjin finally saw what this kind of Duluashan could do. In less than a second, it struck the door at least 100 times. Every knock landed on the same spot and ended up leaving a tiny cavity on the door. "Fine, fine, here I come," the man growled as he pulled the door open. Nakagashi took a step and retreated behind Lin Sanjin with a swift motion. Lin Sanjin glanced at the man from head to toe, glad that he still had his pants on and that the toilet lid behind him was down. The cubicle looked like a small office. Many pieces of paper were nailed to the wall while the toilet seat could have been his chair, and there were several metal cases piled at the corner of the cubicle. The man had rosy cheeks and a pointy nose. His eye bags were heavy and there were black rings around his eyes. Although Lin Sanjin had no idea what kind of species he was, she was not perturbed. After all, there were too many humanoid species in the 12 worlds. Suddenly, Mrs. Manas mumbled something in her mind, but she did not hear it. Just as she took a step closer to the man, she was shocked. "You aren't opposed to it?" "Yeah, so?" asked Pointy Nose nonchalantly as he scratched his face. Like those pedestrians out there, he did not cast a glance toward Nakagashi at all. "Who are you? Have you not seen ordinary people before?" Piqued by curiosity, Lin Sanjin inspected the man from his feet up. "So, there are survivors in the heaven underworld. Hold on a sec. No, this doesn't feel right. You look too young." 70 years had passed since the apocalypse arrived in this world, but the man in front of her looked no more than 30 years old. Besides, ordinary humans could not hop from world to world. So, tisk, what a naive woman. Pointy Nose rolled his eyes. He formed a circle in the air with one hand and brought up a finger. He thrust the finger into the circle as if he was imitating some kind of unsightly movement. "Don't you really have any idea? No matter when and no matter what the situation is, that's something humans will never cease doing. After that, kids will be bored. And when kids are bored, hey, are you here to listen to a biology class?" Lin Sanjin looked at Nakagashi that had suddenly turned silent. She turned her head back to see the man and said, "I'm here to buy houses." It never occurred in Lin Sanjin's wildest dreams that she would one day stand inside a men's washroom and engage conversation with an odd-looking man, saying that she wanted to buy houses. She even began to consider the possibility of her being caught in some kind of prank. Pointy Nose was stunned. He lowered his head, pitched his voice low and said, "Why didn't you say that earlier then?" When he lifted his head to face Lin Sanjin, all the hostility he showed toward Lin Sanjin melted away as a warm smile blossomed across his lips. Come in, come in. Let's talk inside. You didn't talk to anybody on your way here, did you? Did you tell anybody that you want to buy a house? Is he going to ask me whether I was being followed or not?" Lin Sanjin spun her head to look at Nakagashi again. Sensing her gaze, the Kachasegana nodded. After a short bout of rumination, Lin Sanjin decided to bite the bullet, so she stepped into the cubicle. After all, both the man and Nakagashi looked weak, and she was certain that both of them could not best her in a fight. "What's wrong?" After Lin Sanjin walked into the cubicle, Pointy Nose quickly went up and closed the door. He put his ear on the door and listened. Since Lin Sanjin's hearing was much better than his, she knew that there was no one outside except for Nakagashi, but it seemed that the man trusted his ear more than hers. hers. After a while, he turned his face to her and began introducing himself. My name is Timo. I'm the most famous real estate agent around here. Questions such as why is your office in a mushroom and why do we have to be so secretive when buying houses? Played Lin Sanjing's mind like a pest gnawing on wood. Don't you worry. I have scouted this area and I'm certain it is safe. Timo said sternly. I've just moved into this place, and I only sent out the location of my new office 3 days ago. Your guy is pretty good at its job. I won't ask for your name, and a pseudonym will do. So, now, what kind of house are you looking for? Staring straight at the man, Lin Sanji wondered was house another name for drugs in the 12 worlds. Chapter 721, The Life of a Millionaire Start from a Male Washroom. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. I want to buy a batch of houses. If possible, I want them to be near to each other. Lin Sanjin had just started her sentence when she was interrupted by a loud noise. The contents of the toilet sloshed in the holding tank, making a noise so loud that it drowned out all other sounds. Baffled, Lin Sanjin peered ahead to see that the young property agent had leaned his body forward with his brows tightly creased. He touched his ears and mouth. Keep going. I can hear you. He only released the flush lever after a long while, and the toilet gradually came to a still. What are you doing? Lin Sanjin asked with a blank expression as she was too flummoxed to come up with a response. Why would you? Don't whine about that. It's just a requisite measure. Timo shrugged. Then, he turned and took several pieces of documents down from the wall. After he shoved the documents into the gaping collar in front of his chest, he lifted the toilet lid. May I know what kind of houses are you looking at? I'm looking for a batch of houses that are very near to one another. A contiguous lot, if possible. Lin Sanjin said hesitantly also. It has to come with a complete set of facilities. A contiguous lot? Alright. Timo lifted the toilet lid. I'm not sure if I have anything that suits your criteria, but anyway, let's take a look. Look at what? Just as Lin Sanjin thought that the man would pull out the documents about the houses, or a packet of heroin, something fluttered in her brain which prompted her to look down. Earlier on, she only heard the water flowing down the tank, but she did not hear the sloshing of contents moving into the pipe. Right now, the toilet bowl was overfilled with a sea of blackish liquid. She could clearly see the ripples that spread towards the rim of the bowl. First time buying a house, the estate broker teased. Well, you'll see the light soon. Come, sit here. After that, he pulled a folding chair out from nowhere. A clueless Lin Sanjin crammed herself into the chair and sat next to the toilet bowl. It was uncomfortable for her as the cubicle did not have enough space for her to position her long legs. After that, Timo took a cane out from behind the water tank. He sat down and began stirring the blackish liquid inside the toilet bowl. Why are you looking at me? Asked Timo as he rolled his eyes at his stupefied customer. The unconvincing real estate broker pulled the cane out and wrapped the rim of the bowl. Look here, is this what you are looking for? Before Lin Sanjin could ask where she should go, she instinctively peered into the toilet bowl. The blackish liquid was clearing up as various colors and shapes began to fill the space, forming a view that was very familiar to Lin Sanjin. She felt like she was looking at a house tour. The living room was an unusual circular space surrounded by a ring of rainforest-like plants. This is, looking straight into the pool of water. Lin Sanjin was so dumbfounded that she was tongue-tied. The quality of the image was superb and the water was calm, disturbed only by the occasional rippling wavelet. This is the most suitable house on hand, and the house is in tip-top condition. What you're seeing now is a kind of liquid crystal that can play back whatever graphics that have been preloaded into it. Why do you look so surprised? Have you never seen a special item before? I thought you were a post-human, so you should be accustomed to a gadget such as this. Anyway, this is a kind of vision fluid that was developed from a special item. What's the use of developing it? As Lin Sanjin asked, she craned her neck to have a clearer look at the graphic in the toilet bowl. The view had now changed to a rectangular passageway that looked like a corridor. However, the corridor was too long, so the exit was merely a globe of light the size of a human fist. The broker tapped lightly on the corridor, and several sheets fell off from the walls on both sides, revealing the darkness within. Lin Sanjin had no idea what the use of it was. It is pretty useful, but now isn't the time to talk about it. Lin Sanjin was certain that Timo was just being lazy. She noticed his indifference from the way he drawled his words when he was introducing the houses. How many of you are going to stay there, including the camouflage barrier? This house has a total area of 2,000 square meters, and all the basic facilities are readily available. It has a total of 12 rooms and several storerooms, so I'm certain it can fit your party perfectly. Like all other real estate brokers in the modern days, he was skilled at capturing his customers' heart by emphasizing the pros of his product. Lin Sanjin tried to imagine a day when all of them stayed in a house together. She realized that it was probably a nightmare. Rabbit would surely often pick a fight with KCG, and she was confident that the cat doctor would abuse his power to help him satisfy his strange hobby of collecting corpses. No, I don't think this will do. Do you have others? Lin Sanjin asked. My friends are all pretty eccentric, and I don't think they can stay together harmoniously without getting into a fight. Upon hearing her words, Timo began to stir the liquid again. There was nothing special about his motions. It occurred to Lin Sanji that it was the spot where he dipped the cane into that gave different commands to the vision fluid. When he stopped stirring, the previous image disappeared, to be replaced by a long paragraph filled with tiny letters. If you want to join in houses, currently I have only 2 on hand, and the other houses nearby have all been sold out. So, I have 2 options for you. Firstly, you can snap up these 2 houses first, and then slowly acquire the remaining adjacent houses. Or secondly, you can take a look at one of the condominiums I have right now. It has a quiet environment and an excellent security system, but the compromise is that the price isn't very customer friendly. Right now, money was her last problem to worry about. Nevertheless, the image that appeared on top of the toilet bowl did not quite match the image Lin Sanji had in mind. The condominium was not a building. In fact, it could not even be called a condominium. It was a perfect annular white eminence with sophisticated metal plates protruding from the hollow center of the rim that formed an intricate pattern. What's this? Lin Sanji glanced at Timo. She noticed that the real estate broker believed that she would not be interested in buying the lot, so he looked rather unenthusiastic. Why is it a ring? Well, they are designers, and we commoners will never understand a designer's brain. Timo spun his black ring dice in a full circle, but he did not look at her. It's very spacious. The total area is 302.8 acres with 36 units available. It comes with 4 large dining halls, a tennis court, an air pressure control system, a water circulation system, cold storage. There's also a gym, a shooting range, a one-man semi-autonomous clinic. He was too lazy to describe every single facility to Lin Sanji, so he just sped through the images using the cane and gave a vague explanation. Indeed, the pale cyan wall gave off a metallic sheen. The interior was enormous, and the longer Lin Sanji looked at the image, the more she was absorbed into it. She even forgot the fact that she was staring at the toilet bowl. Perhaps it was some sort of feeling that she could not describe, but the moment she saw the white ring, she could feel her heartbeat getting faster. Okay, I'm buying it. How much is the price? She uttered the words before she could even come to her senses. Several moments of silence crawled by and left a slimy trail of denial behind them. Timo lifted his heavy eyelids. His eyes were getting wider and larger with every passing second, looking like a wolf that had its eyes set on a prey. The price is high. He placed the cane on the ground as his hands clasped together tightly. I mean like, insanely high. Just name the price. Timo quoted a price, but it made no sense to Lin Sanji because she had no idea how many red crystals it would cost. She only knew that it was a huge sum of money. However, the price of the unit was decided by the landlord. If she wanted a discount, she had to meet the landlord in person to activate her Scrooge McDuck power. It doesn't matter. You can convert the money into a check in the heaven zone. Then, you just fill in the numbers. Timo's attitude towards Lin Sanji suddenly changed. And my brokerage fee is, hold on a sec. Don't you need to bring me to check the units before we strike the deal? The broker froze. He smacked his lips as if he was considering how to reply to that question so as not to rub Lin Sanji in the wrong way. Well, you can't personally go and have a look at the unit. Don't get me wrong. The units are all in perfect condition. If you want, I can try to arrange with the landlord and set up a holographic tour for you. Why can't I go and check the units personally? Lin Sanji asked, her brows raised in question. Timo sighed as he moved his hands to rub his face. He looked like an exhausted marathon runner who had just reached the finish line and was told that the organizer had decided to extend the marathon for another 20 kilometers. Why do you think I set up my office inside a washroom? Timo said, his face drawn. Do you have any idea how many times I have to listen to other people pee and poop in a day? Well, that's fine for me since the moment I decided to make a washroom my office. I knew what were the compromises and what I would go through every day, but I never thought this kind of thing would happen to me. Last night, somebody showed me his finger through the gap below and tried to lure me out. No, I just can't. I am not gay. Staring dumbfoundedly at Timo, who suddenly went out of control and began ranting and raving, Lin Sanji said, then, why don't you leave? Amongst all my other spots, washroom is the safest. Timo let out a long sigh. Being a real estate broker is not as easy as you think. There are a lot of hidden crises and dangers lurking in the dark waiting to mow you down when you are at your most vulnerable. If I had good parents, then perhaps I wouldn't have to work in this industry. Suddenly, he peered at the door and stopped speaking. You make yourself sound like you are a drug. Lin Sanji could not help laughing. The real estate broker pulled the toilet lid down dejectedly. He threw himself onto it and continued. You post-humans possess all sorts of powerful abilities, and there's but one character common among you. You tend to be impulsive, and in the end, you make more enemies than friends. Those who have settled down in the 12 worlds are even more so. Everybody wants to catch the broker who sells houses to their enemies so that they can flush out the location of their enemy's house or the way to deactivate the house's camouflage barrier or cut off their enemy's escape route. More importantly, the technology of installing a fixed teleport point in a house has already been diffused to society. Lin Sanji was bewildered as understanding dawned upon her. If her enemy found out the location of her house and hid in the dark, they could wait for the right moment to strike. For example, the few seconds before they opened their eyes after they were transferred from another world was their most vulnerable state. In that state, regardless of how powerful she was certain that she would be dead in no time. Do you know why there are ordinary humans like me in this industry? Lin Sanjing shook her head. Because we are weak, and we post-humans can get rid of us whenever. Timo looked straight into her eyes. So, we have learned our lesson. We won't and will never ask for some information such as the location of the houses that might put us in danger. Well, luckily I don't have one. Lin Sanjing smiled in relief. I used to have one, but no, I guess we've already become friends. Timo stared at her for a moment before saying, please don't make me laugh. Among those who could afford to buy a property in the 12 worlds, I am 100% certain that there's somebody out there that wants you dead. This is an unbreakable curse. I'm being very serious. I really don't have any enemies. Lin Sanjing said again. Well, I guess you are lucky then. Timo reluctantly agreed. After all, Lin Sanjing was one of his largest accounts after such a long while. He rose to his feet, pulled out a piece of paper and wrote something on it. Tomorrow at this time, go to the address written on this paper to view the hologram. It would be even better if we can strike a deal on the same day. Well, that's all from me. The exit is over there. Please see yourself out. Lin Sanjing's heart went pit-a-pat. The snowy white ambulance showed up in her brain again. Lin Sanjing had no idea why, but she already